Florence, the heart of the Renaissance, a city of marble cathedrals, powerful families, brilliant architects, and artists whose works would change the world forever. Yet among all the painters of that age, one stood apart. He did not seek fame. He did not chase wealth. He did not paint for glory. Before touching his brush, he prayed. Before painting Christ, he wept. And those who saw his works believed they had glimpsed heaven itself. His name was Fra Angelico, the Dominican friar who transformed sacred art forever. This is the story of the painter-monk, whose holiness shone through every color he touched. A child of Tuscany. Around the year 1395, in the Tuscan region near Florence, a boy named Guido di Pietro was born in the village of Vicchio in the Republic of Florence. Europe was emerging from the chaos of plague, war, and political unrest. But Italy was also entering a new age. Italy was entering the early Renaissance. Artists, architects, and scholars were rediscovering beauty, realism, and human expression in ways unseen for centuries. Young Guido grew up surrounded by the hills and sunlight of Tuscany, landscapes that would later echo through his paintings with quiet serenity. Very little is known about his childhood with certainty, but historical records show that by 1417, Guido was already working as a painter in Florence. He likely trained in the artistic traditions of late Gothic painting, possibly influenced by the painter Lorenzo Monaco and the flourishing workshops of Florence. Yet, unlike many ambitious artists of his age, Guido's heart was drawn not merely to beauty, but to God. Art, for him, would never become self-glorification. It would become prayer. The Dominican Friar. Sometime between 1420 and 1422, Guido entered the Dominican order at the convent of San Domenico in Fiesole, near Florence. There, he took the religious name Fra Giovanni, Brother John. The Dominicans were known as the Order of Preachers. Founded by Saint Dominic, the order combined intellectual rigor with deep spiritual discipline. Fra Giovanni embraced both. He lived the disciplined life of a friar: prayer, fasting, study, silence, and obedience. But he also continued to paint. Soon, the friars and patrons around Florence noticed something extraordinary about his work. His paintings possessed gentleness, purity, stillness. His saints did not appear theatrical or proud. They appeared holy. Even centuries later, viewers would describe his paintings as peaceful, luminous, and deeply contemplative. Eventually, people began calling him Angelico, the angelic one. Not because he painted angels, but because people believed his soul resembled them. The rise of the Renaissance. The Florence of Fra Angelico's time was exploding with artistic innovation. Men like Filippo Brunelleschi were revolutionizing architecture. Donatello was transforming sculpture, and Masaccio was pioneering realistic perspective in painting. Fra Angelico absorbed these new Renaissance techniques carefully. He mastered perspective, depth, light, realistic architecture, and natural human expression. Yet, unlike some Renaissance artists who focused heavily on human pride or worldly glory, Fra Angelico used these innovations for sacred purposes. he painted heaven with realism, not fantasy. His art made divine mysteries feel near, human, reachable. One of his earliest major masterpieces was the Linaiuoli altarpiece, completed in 1433 for the Linen Merchants Guild in Florence. The painting revealed his growing mastery: radiant colors, graceful angels, realistic space, and profound spiritual calm. His reputation spread rapidly, but fame never changed him. According to later Dominican tradition, Fra Angelico would never begin painting without prayer, and it was said he painted scenes of the crucifixion while tears ran down his face. San Marco. In 1436, Fra Angelico and several Dominican friars moved to the newly rebuilt convent of San Marco in Florence. This would become the greatest artistic mission of his life. The convent was supported by the powerful banker and ruler of Florence, Cosimo de' Medici. Cosimo commissioned Fra Angelico to decorate the monastery with frescoes, not luxurious political propaganda, not celebrations of wealth, but scenes for meditation, prayer, contemplation. Fra Angelico transformed the convent walls into a spiritual journey through the life of Christ. Cell after cell received frescoes: the Annunciation, the Crucifixion, Christ mocked, the Resurrection, scenes from the Gospels. The monks would wake each morning surrounded by sacred imagery designed not to impress the world, but to draw souls toward God. Among these works, one became legendary: the Annunciation. An angel kneels before the Virgin Mary beneath a quiet Renaissance portico. The colors are soft, the architecture is peaceful, the atmosphere is silent and sacred. Today, the Annunciation at San Marco is considered one of the masterpieces of early Renaissance religious art. Unlike dramatic medieval images filled with fear and symbolism, Fra Angelico's Annunciation radiates humility and peace. Mary bows gently, Gabriel speaks softly, and heaven seems to descend silently into the world. The fresco stood at the top of the convent staircase, greeting the friars each day as they climbed upward toward prayer. For Fra Angelico, art was not decoration. It was theology in color. The Holy Painter. Stories about Fra Angelico's holiness spread throughout Italy. The famous biographer Giorgio Vasari later described him as a man of rare humility and goodness. He reportedly avoided wealth, avoided vanity, and lived with remarkable simplicity. One tradition claims that he refused to make alterations to paintings for the sake of worldly criticism because he believed inspiration came from God. Another story states that he once refused the position of Archbishop of Florence, recommending instead the Dominican Friar Saint Antoninus of Florence. The historical details surrounding this story are debated, but the tradition reflects how deeply people associated Fra Angelico with humility. What made him unique was not merely technical skill. Many artists possessed skill. Fra Angelico possessed reverence. Even modern viewers often sense something different in his paintings: a quietness, a purity, a soul at prayer. Rome and the popes. Fra Angelico's fame eventually reached Rome itself. In 1445, Pope Eugene IV summoned him to the Vatican. There, Fra Angelico painted frescoes for the papal court. Later, under Pope Nicholas V, he created some of his finest works in the Nicoline Chapel of the Vatican between 1447 and 1449. These frescoes depicted the lives of Saint Stephen and Saint Florence with extraordinary richness and realism. Gold light shimmered across the chapel walls. Elegant architecture framed sacred scenes. But even amid the grandeur of Rome, Fra Angelico remained a Dominican friar first, not a celebrity artist, not a court painter obsessed with status. A friar, a servant of God. Final years. In his later years, Fra Angelico continued working between Florence, Fiesole, and Rome. Age slowly weakened him, but his devotion never faded. By now, younger Renaissance masters were rising across Italy, yet many still viewed Fra Angelico with deep reverence. His paintings carried something many artists struggled to capture: spiritual authenticity. On February 18, 1455, Fra Angelico died in Rome at the Dominican convent of Santa Maria sopra Minerva. He was buried there beneath a simple tomb. An inscription honored him not merely as a painter, but as a servant of Christ. The legacy of Fra Angelico. As centuries passed, empires rose and fell, the Renaissance ended. But Fra Angelico's paintings endured. Artists admired him. Monks prayed before his frescoes. Pilgrims traveled to Florence simply to stand in silence before the Annunciation. Even today, his works remain among the treasures of Christian art. In 1982, Pope John Paul II officially beatified Fra Angelico. 2 years later, in 1984, John Paul II declared him the patron of Catholic artists. It was a fitting honor, because Fra Angelico proved something timeless. Art can become prayer, beauty can lead souls toward God, and holiness can shine through even a single brushstroke. Fra Angelico never commanded armies, never ruled kingdoms, never wrote great theological books. Yet through silence, humility, and sacred beauty, he helped generations glimpse heaven. Perhaps that is why his paintings still feel alive centuries later. Not because they display human greatness, but because they quietly point beyond themselves toward eternity.